Beyond the gates, spoilers tease that a low rumble of distant thunder announced Anita Dupree's arrival at the rustling eucalyptus grove that had once been the clandestine rehearsal site of Articulettes, the avant-garde performance troupe she had co-founded with Tracy and Sharon 20 years ago. As she stepped from the rental SUV onto the damp earth, the familiar tang of pine resin and damp soil surged through her, unlocking a flood of memory and adrenaline. The grove, once draped in makeshift banners and fairy lights, now lay largely abandoned, save for a few moss-clad stones that marked the perimeter. Tonight would resurrect it all, or dismantle the fragile peace they'd all so desperately tried to maintain. Anita's mind replayed the journey from Chicago, each mile a testament to her resolve. After years of scrambling corporate pitches and chilly boardrooms, she had finally surrendered to the pull of unfinished business. Her phone screen glowed with a thread of messages from Vernon Dupree, the taciturn financier who had underwritten their earliest experiments in boundary-pushing performance art. Vernon's last note had been terse: come with answers, or do not come at all. Anita knew that her colleagues, Tracy and Sharon, had already been circling him, weaving their own narratives. Everything hinged on what she would reveal tonight. She paused by a towering oak at the grove's entrance, inhaling deeply. Her palms were damp. She recalled the last time she had seen Tracy in a cramped loft in Brooklyn, laced with cigarette smoke and peeling wallpaper. Tracy had warned her not to return. Chicago's drained you to the last drop, her former partner had said, eyes glittering like obsidian shards. But Anita had persisted, convinced that only she carried the keys to a reunion that could salvage more than just their legacy. It could save herself. Under the oak's gnarled branches, Vernon waited, leaning against a weathered bench. His gray-streaked hair caught in the sporadic flash of lightning, revealing a network of worry lines etched deep from years of silent calculation. He stood when Anita approached, giving her a curt nod. Anita sensed the gamble in his eyes. Disappointment if she faltered, excitement if she held something extraordinary. She straightened her shoulders and offered a measured smile. "The others are on their way," she began, voice low. "But there's something you need to know before they arrive. It changes everything." Vernon's eyebrows lifted imperceptibly. Anita laced her fingers together, steeling herself. Chicago wasn't just meetings and mergers. I stumbled onto a rumorno, more than a rumor. I found evidence that someone's been siphoning funds earmarked for Articulette's revival. And it's closer to home than we ever imagined. A long silence settled between them, broken only by the soft crackle of thunder. Vernon shifted, the bench creaking under his weight. "Go on," he urged, arms crossed. Anita opened her satchel and withdrew a slender folder. Inside lay spreadsheets and photocopies of transfer notices. She slid them across the bench. Vernon's gaze darted between the pages, transactions routed through shell companies, barely disguised, all funneled toward a shadowy account in Europe. "They started last November," Anita continued. "Just after Tracy and Sharon pitched you on the reunion strategy. I didn't want to believe it, but the trail leads directly back to one of us." Vernon's jaw clenched, fingers tapping rhythmically on his knee. Anita watched his expression shift from disbelief to cold anger. She had expected denial, not this steely resolve. Footsteps crunched along the gravel path. Tracy emerged from the gloom first, her silhouette tall and prim, framed by the intermittent flashes of lightning. Her trench coat whipped around her calves as she approached, eyes trained on the folder in Anita's hands. Behind her, Sharon stepped lightly, a mischievous grin already playing at her lips. Sharon had always been the wild card, unpredictable, irrepressible, a force of nature that both captivated and terrified. "Evening, Vernon," Tracy said, voice clipped. She regarded Anita with a mixture of disdain and curiosity. "I guess you have a new sales pitch lined up." Anita met her gaze steadily. "I have proof that whoever wanted to sink Articulettes has been skimming our budget for months. It's betrayal, pure and simple. Tracy's lips curled into a half-smile. Is that so? I thought we were all on the same team. Sharon laughed, a soft but unsettling sound. She folded her arms, her posture relaxed, as if she had anticipated drama. Oh, we're on the same team, honey. We've been on the same stage for 2 decades. But some seasons you bloom, and some seasons you wither. She stepped closer, toes brushing the damp earth. So, which season are we in now? As the wind picked up, rattling dead leaves across the clearing, tension coiled between the 4 of them like a serpent ready to strike. Vernon glanced at each woman in turn, Anita, waving the incriminating documents, Tracy, who looked as though she might walk away at any moment, and Sharon, who seemed to savor each heartbeat of uncertainty. His decision would shape the troop's destiny. There's more, Anita said, sensing that the moment demanded all her cards. I uncovered correspondence messages suggesting that one of you reached out to a rival collective in Berlin. You offered them our intellectual property, the core concepts for the Gates performance. Vernon's eyes narrowed. Gates, he echoed. You mean the piece we spent years developing, the one we shelved after the accident? Tracy's face paled, though she strove to maintain composure. People change their minds, she said softly. We thought maybe it was time to let the concept evolve somewhere else. Anita felt a surge of righteous indignation. You don't get to monetize betrayal under the guise of evolution. Sharon's grin faded, replaced by a mask of steely incredulity. Don't lecture me on betrayal, she snapped. You're the one who left for Chicago and tried to erase us from memory. Lightning split the sky, illuminating Sharon's angular features. Her eyes glimmered with a challenge. You think I don't know how you really feel? You ran off, took Vernon's money, and left Tracy and me picking up the pieces. And now you come back with your so-called updates and expect the world to applaud. Anita's pulse thrummed in her ears. She'd rehearsed this confrontation, but Sharon's words cut deeper than anticipated. Vernon stood, voice firm, enough. If you 3 are going to salvage Articulettes, you need to confront these truths rather than hide behind passive-aggressive digs. He turned to Anita. Your evidence is solid? Every transfer matched, she replied. Every message is time-stamped. Tracy's fingers drummed against her thigh, her gaze darting between Vernon and Anita. Sharon exhaled slowly, arms unfurling as she took a step back, as though measuring the space she needed. A long tensioned moment passed. Then, unexpectedly, Sharon smiled, an expression both warm and predatory. Fine, she said. Show me the receipts. She reached for the folder, and as her fingers brushed the pages, Tracy closed the distance between them. No, Tracy said sharply. Anita, these belong on the table for all of us. This isn't private. Under the ragged glow of an old lantern swinging from a nearby bough, they spread the documents across a rough-hewn table salvaged from the grove. Rain began to patter against the canopy of leaves, as though the sky itself had grown weary of their squabbles. Lightning flickered again, and Vernon read aloud the first transfer, 25,000 Swiss francs to account number. His voice dropped. And this one, 40,000 euros. All within days of our last European tour. Sharon scoffed. It was an investment in my solo project. You all agreed it was time I branched out. Tracy's eyes blazed. Investment? You funneled company funds to feed your ego. Anita's heart thundered. The electric stakes of the reunion had just gone sky high. Vernon slammed his palm on the table, making the papers flutter. There's no smooth way to merge a fraud of this magnitude with a creative partnership. It's either you step down, or the rest of you dissolve this troupe tonight. Tracy's breath caught. Anita steadied herself against the table's edge. Sharon's jaw tightened. For an endless heartbeat, nothing moved but the trembling lantern light and the falling rain. Then Sharon, in a motion swift as a striking snake, ripped the top page from the stack and held it aloft. I'll decide my own fate, she declared. Her voice rang clear. But under one condition, we finish this reunion on our terms. No outside money, no backroom deals. We make the art we promised, or we walk away. Vernon's gaze shifted between them. The world's changed. Without funding, you won't get off the ground. Sharon's wild grin returned. Then we create our own stage, she said. We forge gates from our ashes and prove that Articulettes can't be bought or sold. Tracy exhaled, shoulders slumping in reluctant agreement. Anita watched Sharon's triumphant spark ignite a fragile bond among them. The grove seemed to lean in, branches bowing as though in anticipation. They might tear each other apart, but the fire that had once fused them still glowed faintly in the dark. Lightning cracked again, and thunder rolled across the valley. Anita looked up, rain trickling down her forehead. This was only the beginning. The first act of a reunion narrative 10 years overdue, where trust would be tested, old wounds reopened, and the true shape of Articulettes would emerge from the storm. The real trial how they'd rebuild, reconcile, or perhaps splinter lay ahead. And none of them knew who would walk through those gates unbroken. The rain tapered off by dawn, leaving the grove glazed with dew and wreathed in mist. Under a pallid morning light, Anita moved among the scattered chairs and overturned crates that served as their impromptu meeting hall, replaying Sharon's ultimatum in her mind. No outside money, no backroom deals. They would build everything from scratch. As the others slowly stirred to life, Tracy appeared at the edge of the clearing, clutching a battered leather notebook. Her pale eyes were hollow but resolute. She had spent the night rewriting the original Gates script, excising every trace of compromise. Anita approached cautiously. "You found it," she murmured, nodding toward the notebook. Tracy offered a curt smile. "I had to. The piece was about transformation, becoming and unbecoming. We broke its own rules when we let money steer us. I rewrote the opening to reflect rebirth." She tapped the cover. "It's all here." Sharon sauntered into view next, her presence magnetizing. She wore a simple black turtleneck and sneakers streaked with mutant attire that said she meant business. In her hand, she carried a coil of rope and a handful of nails, the raw tools of her favored medium, installation art. "We'll need physical gates," she announced, surveying the grove. "Frame them with steel girders, drape them with mirrors. Make the audience confront themselves when they pass through." Her grin was feral, electric. "And I know a scrapyard downstate where I can scavenge the materials." Vernon materialized from the shadows, his silhouette stiff with reluctance. In his hand he held a thermos of coffee black, no sugar, and offered it to Anita. She accepted, feeling the warmth seep into her fingers. "I spoke to a friend at the city permit office," Vernon reported. "He can expedite our license to assemble structures in public spaces. But only if you present a safety plan by tonight." He glanced at Sharon. "And if you can demonstrate we're not a liability." Sharon laughed, tossing her hair back. "We're artists, Vernon. We'll engineer safety as we engineer wonder." By mid-morning, they had laid out a schedule. Tracy would direct the narrative arc, script in hand. Sharon would design and build the gates themselves, and Anita would handle logistics, securing locations, recruiting performers, and documenting progress. Vernon would act as intermediary with city officials, using his influence sparingly. Their first task was to scout a proper stage. They piled into the SUV, Tracy poring over her notebook, Sharon sketching blueprints on the back of business cards, and Anita scrolling through images of abandoned factories on her phone. Vernon drove in silence, glancing occasionally at the rearview mirror as though expecting further betrayal. They arrived at a defunct textile mill on the outskirts of town by midday. The sprawling complex of red brick buildings stood silent, its tall windows cracked and choked with ivy. Inside, shafts of light slanted through broken panes, illuminating dust motes that danced over rotting wooden floors. "It's perfect," Sharon breathed, pacing around a cavernous hall flanked by columns. Imagine gates here, 3 of them, lined up like portals to different selves. She ran a fingertip along a rusted beam, feeling its history vibrate beneath her touch. Tracy nodded, already mapping out actor positions in her head. We'll set Gate 1 at the entrant repentance. Gate 2 at the midpoint rebirth. Gate 3 in the final antechamber liberation. Anita watched them trade excited glances, a jolt of pride warming her chest. They were back in their element, 3 creative forces converging. Yet, she couldn't shake the lingering doubt. Could trust survive so fragile an alliance? Late afternoon found them clearing debris and setting up a rudimentary workspace. Sharon and Tracy argued over scaffold placement, voices rising. Vernon interrupted them by clapping his hands. Decision time. We need to finalize the budget for materials, steel, mirrors, lighting, sound. If you don't give me numbers, I can't secure the permit. Sharon shot Tracy a withering look. You have the figures in your head, give them to me and stop dithering. Tracy hesitated, then rattled off a list of costs. Vernon typed it into his phone, brow furrowed. Over budget by 20%, he muttered. Sharon threw up her hands. Fine. I'll redesign Gate 2 using reclaimed wood instead of steel. It'll be more sustainable and cheaper. Tracy blinked, then smiled thinly. A compromise. Vernon allowed himself a faint nod. Sustainability closet stays. They broke for a late dinner in the dusty hall, sharing sandwiches and stale coffee. As they ate, the tension eased into kinship. Tracy confessed her anxiety. I never thought we'd get this far. After Anita and after everything, I wasn't sure Sharon would even show up. Sharon's grin softened. I came for the chaos. Anita steered the conversation to Vernon's safety plan. He unfolded a laptop and showed them a skeletal blueprint, peppered with annotations about fire exits and load capacities. This is the framework, he said. I'll fill in the engineering specs. But I need your sign-offs by tonight. Their signatures inked at the bottom of the digital document marked their first collective commitment. When they parted ways under flickering street lamps, each carried a sliver of renewed hope and the weight of promise. Over the next week, the mill became a beehive of activity. Sharon and a crew of local metalworkers welded and hammered, breathing life into her gate prototypes. Sparks flew against the red bricks as towering frames took shape. Each gate felt alive, ringing with possibility. Tracy rehearsed actors in the cavernous lobby, a diverse ensemble of dancers, poets, and acrobats, each embodying themes of guilt, metamorphosis, and freedom. Anita negotiated sponsorship from a community arts foundation, securing enough funds to cover lighting and sound, on condition that all ticket proceeds would support local youth programs. Vernon brokered the contract, his signature officializing the troupe's rebirth. Despite the progress, fractures reemerged. One rainy afternoon, Sharon stormed into the rehearsal space, drenched and furious. She had discovered that Tracy had leaked a rehearsal video to a local magazine, hoping to build buzz. You promised no leaks, Sharon spat, water dripping from her hair. Now everyone knows our staging scheme. Our surprise is ruined. Tracy bit her lip, defensive. It was only behind-the-scenes footage teasers. They'll never see the full piece. Sharon's eyes blazed. When did you become comfortable giving away our secrets? The metalworkers stopped their welding, sparks hanging in the air like restless spirits. Anita intervened, placing a calming hand on Sharon's arm. This is marketing. We need an audience. Sharon jerked her arm away. There's marketing, and there's betrayal. She stormed out, leaving Tracy trembling with guilt. Vernon looked at Anita. This is exactly what I feared, he said quietly. Later that evening, as thunder grumbled beyond the mill windows, Tracy found Sharon dismantling a partially built gate. Stop, Tracy said softly. Don't do this. Sharon ignored her, yanking a steel beam loose. You want to film the stars, then keep them from shining, she retorted. Tracy reached out and held the beam alongside Sharon's hands. We're not the same trio that fell apart 10 years ago. We can still find balance. Sharon's jaw twitched. Balance, she repeated, voice cracking. Maybe that's the dream we sold to ourselves. Their confrontation stretched on until dawn, when both women collapsed in exhaustion. They didn't reconcile, but they reached a mutual pausch on unspoken truce. Opening night arrived under a cold spring sky. Word had spread of Articulette's clandestine revival, and a curious crowd flocked to the mill. Vernon greeted ticket holders at the entrance, his usual reserve softened by a genuine smile. As the sun dipped below the rooftops, lights flickered on, LED strips outlining the perimeter, spotlights trained on each gate. The air orated with anticipatory hums and murmurs. Anita lingered in the wings, heart pounding. She scanned the faces in the audience: old patrons, skeptical neighbors, eager students. Tracy, clad in black again, whispered last-minute notes to her performers. Sharon hovered near the gates, inspecting each weld, her wild card energy simmering beneath perfect control. When the performance began, a hush fell. The first gate, titled Remorse, stood at the entrance as a silent sentinel. An actor, costumed in muted grays, approached it, trembling. As he stepped through, voices whispered from behind the mirror-backed frame, fragments of confession, spoken softly and hauntingly amplified. The audience leaned forward, entranced by the interplay of light and shadow. Gate 2, Metamorphosis, was a whirlwind of movement. Dancers in iridescent costumes spiraled through its arch, shedding layers of tattered fabric that caught fire under stage strobes, only to be instantly extinguished. The effect was otherworldly rebirth enacted in flame and smoke. There were gasps, audible awe. But it was Gate 3, Liberation, that shattered expectations. Sharon's final creation was a functional steel cage draped in translucent veils. One by one, Tracy's poets marched through, reciting lines of forgiveness and love, then physically tore free the bars with tools hidden in their sleeves, releasing birds that soared upward, their wings flickering in the light. The sheer beauty and raw catharsis brought many to tears. When the last bird disappeared into the night sky, the audience exploded into applause. Vernon, watching from the control booth, allowed himself an unguarded smile. Backstage, Anita, Tracy, and Sharon embraced, sweat and tears mingling on their faces. The reunion had been a triumph. In the days that followed, Articulettes was reborn in the city's art scene. Critics lauded the performance as daring and transformative. Online clips went viral, community groups clamored for more. Yet beneath the accolades lay new challenges. Sharon, exhilarated by the outpouring, proposed touring the piece in Europe. Berlin, Paris, London, she rattled off, eyes shining. Let them see our gates. Tracy hesitated. We still need to refine the narrative for different audiences. She feared that rushing might dilute the piece's intimacy. Anita saw the friction rising. We'll need new funding if we expand, she reminded them. Vernon's voice cut in. I've fielded offers from private collectors. They'll bankroll you. No questions asked. Sharon snorted. No backroom deals, she hissed, recalling their earlier vow. Tracy's posture stiffened. Private collectors could saddle us with strings. Vernon held up his hands. I'm just telling you what's out there. Anita placed herself between them. Let's hold a vote. We owe each other that much. The tension in the workshop was palpable as each weighed the other's trustworthiness. As they debated, an envelope arrived for Anita unmarked, bearing no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a bank statement showing an enormous deposit CHF 100,000 into the very account Anita had first exposed. But this deposit was recent, dated 2 days before opening night. In the margin, a type note, for your troubles. A friend. Anita paled. She knew immediately that the funds could mean ruin. If the deposit surfaced, it would implicate them in accepting illicit funding, destroying their no-money vow and handing their critics a field day. She slipped the paper into her notebook, determined to contain the fallout. That evening, as they gathered in the mill to plan the next steps, Anita disclosed the strange windfall. Sharon's eyes glittered with suspicion. "Someone's testing us." Tracy's voice trembled. "Maybe it's Vernon arranged it without telling us." Vernon bristled. "Me? I advised against outside money." Anita held up the note. "It's from someone who wants leverage." The three exchanged charged glances. The debate reignited old insecurities. Who among them could reach into hidden channels? Could it be Rachel, their former stage manager who still harbored resentment? Or perhaps a rival collective seeking to sabotage them? The more they speculated, the more fractures deepened. In a late-night emergency meeting, they decided to reject the deposit and return the funds immediately, citing legal improprieties. Anita drafted an email to the bank. Tracy and Sharon watched her hands shake. Vernon looked on, conflicted. "Are you sure?" he asked. "This could fuel our expansion." Sharon's glare was icy. "We agreed no outside strings." As midnight chimed, the funds were flagged for reversal. Relief washed over them, but a chill remained. In the weeks that followed, Articulette's momentum continued, but a quiet paranoia settled over the troupe. Every new offer of patronage, every congratulatory message, became suspect. Sharon began double-checking every contract. Tracy revised security protocols for rehearsals. Anita spent sleepless nights vetting every email. Vernon watched them with growing concern, fearing that their idealism was snapping under the weight of success. Amid this tension, a surprise invitation arrived, an offer to exhibit a sculptural installation based on the Gates concept in a prestigious downtown gallery. The curator, a mutual acquaintance of Vernon's, promised a week-long show and generous stipends. It was everything they craved, but accepting meant compressing their timeline and exposing unfinished work. They met at dawn in the mill. Tracy argued for caution. "We're not ready for the white cube environment. The piece needs grit." Sharon saw opportunity. "If we say no, someone else will say yes. We want our art to provoke, not sit in a museum." Anita hesitated, looking at the crumbling floorboards. "We could adapt reup mini-gates, video projections, soundscapes." Vernon closed his laptop. "The offer stands for 24 hours. After that, it's gone." The choice pummeled them. In a rare moment of unity, they decided to trust their instinct. They would accept the gallery show, but only under conditions they set. No censorship, full creative control, and a clause allowing them to bring the original Gates for a live performance on opening night. The curator agreed. Prepping for the show forced them into a whirlwind of creativity. Sharon sculpted miniature gate models, each imbued with intricate details. Tracy crafted immersive audio experiences that wove audience whispers into the live feed. Anita coordinated logistics down to the last bolt. Vernon liaised with gallery staff, juggling technical demands and production schedules. Opening night at the gallery was electric. Under sterile spotlights, the scaled gates stood like relics of their past, augmented by video loops of the mill performance. Visitors wandered through, drawn by the interplay of memory and present. Then, at the stroke of 8, the lights dimmed. The original Gates were wheeled in from the back, and the performers Tracy's ensemble recreated the climax from the mill, live before a hushed crowd. When the poets shattered the steel bars and released a cloud of paper butterflies, the effect was transcendent. The gallery erupted in applause and tears. Art critics lauded it as a landmark experiment in site-specific performance art. Social media buzzed with hashtags praising Articulette's ingenuity. Yet backstage, the three watched each other warily, acutely aware that the success might come at a cost. One morning, as the city awoke to headlines praising their gallery takeover, Tracy found Sharon and Anita waiting for her outside the mill. Their faces were grave. In Anita's hand was a photocopied bank notice, The original embezzlement account had been emptied entirely. And a final message scrawled in elegant script: "The gates are closed." Silence engulfed them. Vernon's voice crackled through her phone. "I've traced the withdrawal. It was orchestrated by someone using your own art network transfers routed through your Chicago contact." Realities slammed into them. The enemy had evolved. No longer just an absent partner or a greedy rival, this saboteur could be someone within their circle, someone they least expected. The note's finality chilled Tracy to her core. They had negotiated rebirth, but someone was determined to see them fail. Yet in that moment, as dawn's light crept through cracked windows, something shifted. Tracy looked at Anita and Sharon, partners in chaos and conviction, and felt the familiar spark of defiance. They had rebuilt their art from ruins once. They would do it again. Together. And so, as the morning chorus of birds rose outside, the three women clasped hands, not in certainty, but in solidarity. The gates might be closed by others' machinations, but they would find new doors, new stages wherever their creativity led. The next act was theirs to write.